Everyday scenarios like playing with a sibling, dressing oneself, giving mom a hug, or enjoying a family party may be challenging, if not impossible, for a child with disabilities. But what if a child's ear could be retrained to help process sound and messages more effectively, helping to improve vocabulary, gross motor and fine motor skills, balance, sensory integration, and behavior? These advancements are possible through a new therapy called the Tomatis method. The Tomatis method was introduced in Europe over 50 years ago and is being adopted today in the United States. Baker Victory Services, a large human service organization with a long history of caring for children and families, is the only certified Tomatis center in Western New York. The program is offered at the agency's Early Childhood Center in Buffalo.
The Tomatis method actually originated in France in the 1950s and has been around for quite a while. However, it didn't come to the United States until the 1980s. So many people are not even aware of the therapy and what it entails. It's actually an auditory stimulation program that stimulates the ear's natural ability to listen and helps a child to develop their listening abilities. Hearing actually develops around 7 months gestation in the womb, and a fetus actually hears through the mom's bones. As the mom speaks, the mom's bones vibrate, and the amniotic fluid filters that sound that the baby hears. So what the baby hears is the highest frequencies of the mom's voice, which is why when an infant's born and we say to the child, you know, we call them Jimmy, Jimmy, they don't really respond. But when you use that animated voice, Jimmy, hi Jimmy, how are you? They respond because that's what they're used to hearing in the womb. They're used to hearing those high-pitched frequencies. Do you make cookies with Mommy?
Yes.
So what the therapy is going to do is to take them back to those earliest stages of listening in the womb and redevelop and repattern any stages that haven't developed appropriately. When a child comes in here for therapy, the basic program is typically 62 hours of electronically modified sound, and that sound is Mozart music and Gregorian chants, and that music is specially filtered so that they're getting a higher emphasized amount of the high frequencies of the Mozart music. Throughout the 2-hour period that they're listening, the child is going to hear repeatedly over and over those higher frequency sounds intermixed with low frequency sounds. That's what's strengthening their ears.
With so many more children being identified with disabilities so young, such as autism and pervasive developmental disorders and things like that, we knew that we had to find a program to help those children. So we were investigating many different things.
It does. What is that?
One of our parents had 2 children in our program, and she didn't tell us what she was doing, and she went away, and she came back, and we just thought they'd been on vacation. But the difference in these 2 children were remarkable.
I have 3 young boys, 2 of them with disabilities, and as a mom, of course, you know, you want to do everything you can to give them the best life possible. In researching ways that I could help them, I stumbled upon the Tomatis method and decided that this is what I was going to do for my oldest child. We went out of town to New Jersey for this therapy, and we saw absolutely amazing changes. Our youngest one being delayed as well, we started him at the same time.
We further investigated, and there was no program like this anywhere in Western New York, so we decided this was going to be our approach. The program here is only a year old, and already we think we have to start a second clinic class because we have so many private clients out in the community. Word of mouth has been amazing. You get a call from a parent and they say, oh, I know so-and-so, and we cannot believe the change in their child. So they, of course, would like their child to have the same experience.
It's definitely changed the quality of life for my entire family.
The Baker Victory Services Early Childhood Center offers the Tomatis method through an outpatient clinic and integrated preschool classrooms, while also contracting to bring the program to area school districts. While some are skeptical when first hearing about the Tomatis method, the results speak for themselves.
The changes in the children have been dramatic. We see a great deal more eye contact with the children, a lot more language. Several of the children were speaking in perhaps one-word utterances, sometimes two, certainly not using a lot of sentences. And now we are seeing, you know, complete sentences from the children unprompted. This one is called Just Like Turtle. What sound does turtle start with? And there are 14 children in the class, 8 children who were receiving special education services and are listening to the music, and up to 6 children as non-disabled peers to be models for the children in the classroom. When we first began Tomatis, I was skeptical. It seemed very smoke and mirrors, like, okay, I'm not exactly sure this is going to work. But eventually I was convinced through reading more literature, and I was sent to Bethesda, Maryland to learn about the Tomatis program for 3 weeks. And during that time I have had to listen, and then I became a little bit more of a believer because I felt changes in myself, and as a functional adult I discovered that, you know, there were parts of me that were being adjusted throughout through the listening. Orange, red. Not a match. When we first began Tomatis, the children were not terribly interested in wearing the headphones the first couple of days. That's really, really very typical. And then now I have 2 children that cry when we take them off at the end of each session.
Stephen was born with Down syndrome 4 years ago, and he is a very energetic 4-year-old boy that gets into everything, terrorizing his sister and anything that a typical 4-year-old would get into. One of the biggest challenges that we face with Stephen is communication with him, and I think when he's with his peers, that is also a major disadvantage for him. It's hard for him to play face-to-face or with some of the other kids because he can't communicate with them.
Make the T-Rex. What does the dinosaur say?
I actually heard about it from his occupational therapist at the time. She was working with him, and she had told me about this program that they're going to have at Baker Victory. And I did a little research on the program because when she was just giving me a little bit of information on it, you know, that you put headphones on and they listen to music, it's like, how is that going to help him? You know, but once I went to, did some research, found some information on it, and then I was like, oh, we could try this. So when we decided to go ahead and send him to Baker Victory, I was very glad that he was included in the group for the Tomatis.
I've been with Baker Victory Services Early Childhood Program for the past 7 years. And my role here as a therapist is to work on child's gross motor skills as far as their balance, coordination, stair skills, also hand-eye coordination such as ball skills.
Clap your hands. Show me your doodly-doos.
Stephen definitely has very low tone, which means his muscles need a lot of strength, and which does carry over to limited balance and coordination. So I have seen with him an improvement in his stair skills, where he has more confidence and better balance on the stairs. His verbal skills also have really, taken off, I think, with the Tomatis program.
Okay, what is that? A tent. Does tent have a t sound in it? Yeah. Put him in the turtle.
The biggest change that has come with Stephen is his communication. He was going from a level of barely saying, mommy and daddy, to now saying 2-word sentences and sometimes 3-word sentences. And whenever he has those 2- and 3-word sentences, it is like a party at our house. He just loves that he can communicate. He just loves it.
At the time when it came to light that he was PDD, which is a form of autism, he wasn't speaking at all. He really lacked any communication skills at that point. He signed minimally, very few things. We actually even had a picture book of foods so he could point what he wanted. And that was as limited as his communication was with us.
His name is Tama. He's in the train.
When Billy first came to us, he was nonverbal. He didn't have a diagnosis at the time, just developmentally delayed. And this little guy had really 2 words that he used. It was mom and dad. However, he didn't call Mom and Dad by their name. If he wanted them, he screamed.
The truck.
At the beginning, we were just so excited when he started saying a word.
Truck.
Truck. Did you see the big truck?
But then it went to the jumping and the eye contact and the just communication and then play with other kids. I think the most exciting thing for me was when he finally started hugging us, running up and saying mommy and hugging, because he hadn't done that.
It's been a year and you can see the progress. I mean, he talks, he selects his clothes that he wants in the morning. If he doesn't want this shirt, he'll let you know. He's been just absolutely a joy now. And he's a happy little boy.
In the clients here, I've seen that they have an increased ability to follow multi-step directions, as well as increased eye contact.
What are you making?
It makes orange.
Orange. Very good. Joey, help us make orange.
They also have increased expressive language. They're able to combine more words and just more vocalizations.
Pretty, huh?
It's so pretty.
Does it feel scratchy or smooth?
Scratchy.
Okay. Can you push the button for me? There it goes.
There it goes.
There it goes. Good job. Smush it.
It's not a quick cure that everything's all solved, but I mean, what a difference. We never thought we'd get here. We just didn't think it was possible. It was to us a miracle.
At about 19 months, we started him in early intervention with speech, occupational therapy, and play therapy, just to help him along a little bit. Little guy had numerous double ear infections first year of his life, had his first set of tubes by the time he was 13 months, so he just didn't hear much. And you could just sort of tell that his developmental levels have been delayed because of the lack of hearing. We've had him evaluated for autism. He's not quite on the spectrum just yet, but he does show some tendencies.
Many individuals don't realize that, your ear muscles need to be strong enough to do their job. Sometimes with ear infections, we see that those muscles have weakened, or other environmental factors, the ears have weakened, and that's what this program is, devised to do, is to strengthen those middle ear muscles. Throughout the 2-hour period that they're listening, the child is going to hear repeatedly, over and over, those higher frequency sounds intermixed with low frequency sounds. So it strengthens the muscles of the middle ear, and their job is to flex and to tune out sounds that you don't need to hear, like the humming and like the dishwasher sounds, and to focus on the middle and high pitched sounds like our voices. So that's what the goal of this therapy is to strengthen those middle ear muscles.
One of the biggest changes we've seen, Will was very sensitive to sounds. If you were watching television and someone laughed, he'd kind of have a bit of a tantrum. If you were in a room and there was applause, he'd sort of flip out a little bit. It has stopped. I mean, we could be in a comedy club with a bunch of laughing, and Will would just kind of, okay, it is what it is. And no doubt that that has been a response to the Tomatis therapy.
When AJ began, he couldn't sit. He couldn't sit at a table and attend to an activity. AJ's eye contact was minimal at best. You knew he heard you, but you just didn't see the connection between what you were telling him and his actions. We also saw that AJ had problems with sounds that you and I wouldn't have problems with, and that they just set him into tantrums or into situations that weren't always even safe.
Okay, pick one card, turn it over. What do you have? What color?
Yellow.
Yellow. Where do you think the yellow turtle is?
When we began in the fall, we had this child who hardly spoke, and certainly not in sentences, and his diction and his language overall was, when we began the program, I think at about an 18-month level, and he was 4.5 when we began. So, there was a huge deficit there, especially in the communication.
When he began school here, he had many words, but he was only utilizing maybe 10 using them in single word utterances. Most of the time primarily would pull you or have a little bit of a temper tantrum to get his point across about what he wanted. AJ was not able to accommodate a directed activity, a direction of any kind. He required significant assistance to sit down at a table and just color. AJ now is able to look you in the eye when he speaks to you. He's using full sentences primarily now to communicate what he wants and needs. He's interacting with the other kids. Going from independent play to guided cooperative play is a giant jump for a child in 1 year.
After 4 Tomatis loops, he's speaking in full sentences. His diction is fantastic. 90% of the time, we actually understand what he is saying. His eye contact it's beautiful. He knows how to get what he wants, not by just getting up and manipulating physically what he needs to get what he wants, but by coming to me or by coming to his father and asking for what he wants.
The dining car passengers bounced up and down in their seats. Stop, train, stop. Stop on the spot. Our hot...
What I've just noticed is the interaction within people and within social situations that has greatly increased and has just gotten so much better.
Thomas and Toby.
He knows consequences now. If we say, you have to sit or you're going to get in the chair, or as they do at the Tomatis, they have the green, yellow, and red, which we have now adopted for our home. We're doing the same thing at home now. He completely understands consequences.
If then, and that's huge. All of these things that he's doing now, they pretty much told us he would never do. And I really feel like we owe a lot of that to Baker Victory and the Tomatis program and Miss Ginny and just this kind of world that's been opened up for us and for him that we both firmly believe it's coming from the Tomatis program.
The Tomatis method works in varying degrees for each individual. For some, the impact is dramatic. For others, subtle improvements make a big difference in their lives. The retraining and strengthening of one's ear may just be the breakthrough therapy that families throughout the Northeast are looking for.
I don't think there's anything I could say that would express how strongly I feel about the program.
Well, I don't know if it works for every child, but it certainly worked for him.
Even if you get the smallest change, it is a benefit worth everything.
The Tomatis program is the first program that I just thank God every day that we found.
To learn more about the Tomatis method and whether it is right for your family, call the Baker Victory Services Early Childhood Center.